All right, Luke, great to be with you today. We're here in the Vonage offices in Shoreditch in London. So thank you very much for spending some time with me today on the Sales ExPerience podcast.
No worries.
So I guess to start, I'd love to understand, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm Luke Butler. I'm an account executive for Vonage. I've been with Vonage for around about 3 years now. So yeah, I'm primarily going out, meeting new prospects. That's what I do on a daily basis.
Excellent. Well, look, I guess the purpose of this podcast, right, is to understand a bit about your career, how you've ended up where you've ended up, highs, lows, and just to kind of get your experience out there and understand kind of what you love about sales, what you hate about it, and why you're still in it, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, tell me a bit about your background. Where do you go to school? What do you study? All that kind of stuff.
So I was from a military background. So lived in a few different countries throughout my childhood. Germany for most of it. So I went to a military school in various places in Germany. I lived in Australia for 2 years. So I went to school just outside Sydney. And then, I kind of stayed in the UK kind of after the age of 15. So I went to a school in Ripon, so up Yorkshire, Norway. So that's kind of my schooling. And then in terms of how I got into sales, my first sales job was actually in a village that I lived in, trying to make money by cutting people's grass. So I guess that's kind of sales. So literally just printed off some business cards, posted it through people's door. I think I got 1 or 2 offers. So I would go around with like an electric lawnmower, plug it into their electric. So I was using like their electricity. It wasn't a petrol lawnmower, but I guess that was my first job in sales. Yeah.
So how old were you when you were doing that?
Like 17, 18, something. Just trying to make money at college, basically.
Cool. And so would you like knock on doors to follow up, or tell me more about that?
So like I said, I would literally spend like evenings going around posting a business card through, and then I'd have a few people ring me up and be like, can you come around this weekend? I had a couple of regular customers that kind of every other week I'd go around to their house on a Sunday and cut the grass. In fact, a second business that I had in that village was as an IT consultant. So the village was of an older generation. And I thought, okay, well, I think I'm quite tech savvy. I also posted through my business card for fixing laptop issues. And I had one person come to me with a virus on a laptop which I couldn't fix. So I had to kind of just say to them that it's kind of out of my remit. And that was the business over. From there, my reputation went down the pan.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I guess at that point, did you know that you wanted to be in sales, or was it just that was natural to you to
so I've got a couple of family members that are in sales and have done quite well for themselves. And I just like meeting people, right? So I thought, sales is probably quite a good career to go into. And going into university, you're still a little bit unsure exactly what you want to do, right? So I did the classic thing of, okay, well, I'll just do a business degree because that covers a wide element of things. I can decide. And it was definitely more kind of the sales side of it that I enjoyed the most. So I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to sell. It could have been anything. Then at uni I got a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Okay.
So I did like their graduate scheme, which is essentially washing cars and selling car insurance to people. So I guess that was my first proper sales job, actually.
Employed by somebody.
Getting paid a wage every month. So I did a summer internship, which was like 3 to 4 months long. And then when I went back to uni for my final year in Winchester, they said, come and work part-time with us at Winchester. So I continued to do that, which was quite a good actual uni job. And quite sales focused, trying to get people to buy insurance and upsell and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. I always find I've recently booked a car rental for holiday to Spain later this year, and it's a pretty compelling argument, isn't it? If you don't buy this insurance, then it'll cost you a lot more if you get a scratch on the
They
car.
play that card, is that, even a scratch kind of this big and you'll have to pay thousands of pounds.
Or you can buy this insurance for £5 a day.
And you're like, okay, well, I'll buy insurance then. So it probably wasn't a hard sell, it was quite an easy sell, I'd say, in the grand scheme of things. And then, when they returned their car, if they didn't buy the insurance, then we'd go around with a fine tooth comb and say, okay,
and scratch.
Yeah,
No,
no, we wouldn't do that. Of course not.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, you studied business at university.
Yeah.
What kind of student were you? Were you a good student, a bad student?
Ooh.
How do you describe
I don't
yourself?
know, so coming out of college, I didn't have the best grades. So I was C level at college, so not the best grades. And then I kind of went to uni. I kind of just said, look, I might as well give it a good shot. The money that you paid to go to uni. First year wasn't that great. I don't know why, but my grades were quite average still. And then actually in the second year, I did an exchange semester in France, which was by far the best experience of going to university. And it was at the International Business School of Normandy.
Oh, cool.
And just like mixing with all different cultures, all different people from all different backgrounds. It was kind of from that point where I kind of really excelled. And I think, the fact that the exams were in English and the rest of my classmates, English was the second language. So for me, I maybe had a little bit of an advantage, but yeah, kind of from that point, I knew that I could do well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so, if you don't mind me asking, what did you come out of the university with?
I got first in the end. Yeah. So the second year and the third year, yeah, I just made sure I was literally just above the threshold for a first. But it's a first, right? So
yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, really proud.
Very well done. So, graduate university.
Yeah.
What happens next? What do you do there?
It's quite a daunting moment, right? Because you kind of at uni you have a security. You're at uni, you have a day-to-day task. You go to university and you study and you do your exams and all that sort of stuff. And really, kind of 5 months towards the end of uni, it starts to dawn on you like, what the hell am I going to do when I get kicked out of my student accommodation? I'm going to have to find money and all that sort of stuff. Do I move back home with my parents who are in Scotland? Probably not. So yeah, I just started looking. I was just looked on the Winchester uni job site, and basically I found the first job that came up. It was at a software company just outside of Winchester, so relatively easy to get to, and the job was an account manager. So great, I want to go into sales. I don't really know what they do, but I want to be an account manager. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So just went for that, and yeah, I got the job.
So, just a quick question on that. Before you started, so 2 questions really. One, you decided you want to be in sales, so you were actively looking for a sales job?
It was my preference.
Okay.
Yeah, preference was definitely a sales job.
And so just out of interest, were you applying for other jobs as well?
Yeah,
or,
all sorts. All sorts.
Anything you could find?
No, nothing that went further than kind of the first interview.
Okay.
But yeah, I knew kind of
that sales was
I wanted to be in sales, but sales is quite a broad term, right?
Absolutely.
So I had no real idea what that actually meant. I just knew I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And that leads quite nicely into my second question, which was before you started that job as account manager, how much did you understand about what the role was? Like, did you know what your day-to-day was going to be like before you started?
Not apart from what was on the job spec.
And was that a helpful job spec?
It was just like, you're going to be looking after X amount of customers. This is the 3-year plan from a commission point of view.
Okay.
So I knew that, what the year 1 commission structure was like. I knew how it progressed and all that sort of stuff. And you have a car allowance and all that, all this sort of stuff they're throwing at me. It's like, great, the base salary, commission, seems pretty reasonable. I don't know too much about the job yet, but, yeah.
Okay. So, what happened? How did you go?
Yeah, so I was probably quite naive. So I went into the role. I didn't know too much about the company, and I'm kind of just learning on the go, right? And you probably have to do that in your first job or so, just to kind of had a sales director that I was reporting into, kind of lent on him quite heavily to kind of guide me through different situations. I was looking after around about 60 customers, and basically, I was like an orders desk, right? They were contacting me when they wanted to add new licenses or change the structure of the contract. I would be their point of contact for any technical questions either, which were quite challenging because I wasn't really from a technical background.
You were an IT consultant.
Yeah, true, yeah, but that's probably why they hired me actually. But yeah, so it was an account manager role, but it wasn't kind of going out, nurturing accounts, looking for cross-sell opportunities. It was more of a reactive role. It was quite a small company, so maybe lacking a little bit of structure, but you kind of knew what you had to do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So, how long were you there, and kind of what prompted the decision to move on?
Yeah.
And kind of what happened next?
Yeah, it's just so I was there for 11 months. Not ashamed to say I got made redundant after 11 months. Which is quite a challenging thing. 11 months into your first role, and you're told, look, we no longer need you. It's actually they hired three graduates, and we were all eventually let go for whatever reason. And then you go into a mode of panic. You're like, well, this doesn't look great on my CV. I wanted to have a great career in sales, and I've been let go after 11 months. So I actually knew someone that worked at New Voice Media, and she said, look, we've got these positions. Why don't you just go and have a look? And again, I'm probably a little bit desperate at that time. I was like, okay, well, I'll just go. Again, not really sure on the company. I've had a look at the website. Don't really get it. Yeah. But it's software. Something to do with selling on the phone. I'll just go and have a look. So I just went for an interview, and you were there.
Yeah. So for the benefit of those watching and listening, I actually hired Luke at New Voice Media in a previous life. So talk to me about kind of that process. Why did you decide to join? What did you learn from that experience, and kind of tell me about that?
I guess it's quite lucky that I joined NVM, right? Because I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet. I didn't know much about the company. I just knew I needed a job, right? So, kind of going through the interview process, understanding the role. I was probably, to be honest, a little bit set back with the role in the fact that it wasn't an account manager role. But realistically, looking back, neither was the other role I was in. It was just named as an account manager role. And I suppose to go from that role to a inside sales development is quite like a mentally challenging thing to do. To say, okay, well, I'm going to be on the phones now. Outbound prospecting, supporting account executives that are actually closing business. I would say definitely kind of the first few months were particularly challenging for me to get my head around that. I'd say particularly challenging.
Okay, and your title then was a sales development representative or a sales representative. What is that role?
What was I doing?
What does that role look like?
Yeah. So essentially, I was supporting 2 account executives in building the pipeline. And when we say pipeline, we talk about booking meetings for them. So booking calls where I've qualified the opportunity, and it's now at a stage where they can do further qualification on it, book a demo, go and see the prospect. But essentially, the way that I view the SDR role is the first line of defense. If someone says that they're interested in your offering, then the SDR role is that first person that is going to get on the phone to that person, just qualify actually what are they interested in, and actually can my company help them? Is there a match there? And if there isn't a match, fine, maybe it's not the right time or the right opportunity. But if there is a match, then that's when you would book it for the account executive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about kind of that journey of starting that role, and what did you learn? What did you experience? What were some of the challenges that you faced?
It's a really tough role, right? Being on the phone. I would say, initially there's a lot of tough questions, and trying not to get into a functionality conversation of, look, we need X, can your company do it? But rather actually get into a value conversation. And I think that does take quite a few months as an SDR to try and lead with a value for that company, rather than say, we can do telephones. I don't know. Really challenging role. I think, the SDR role for me was all about having that relationship with the account executive and seeing myself as probably an extended arm of their business, rather than seeing it just as, like, I'm booking meetings for you and that is my role. And then, as kind of went through the months, then you start to think, okay, well, how can I be more proactive? Instead of just reacting to inbound leads, how can I be more proactive in actually going after certain accounts and going in with the right messaging and making it personalised to individuals within that account, and trying to sell them the vision of what New Voice Media can offer them. Okay.
So when did you feel like you got it? When did you feel like, right, I've nailed this, I know what I'm doing, I know how to be successful? How did that happen?
So I think, again, to be honest, I think probably after 4 months I hated the role. I literally hated it, and I struggled with that, that mentality of going back to being, inside sales. But it was really, I'd say probably from month 5 to month 6, where I just got it, and you could see people progressing from an SDR into the account manager role or account executive role. So you really start to see the vision in terms of what your career could be like. And I think probably more importantly, you realise how important the SDR role is, right? You know, to actually understand the value of what you're selling, but also to understand, you know, how to communicate with prospects. You know, again, you can imagine if you want to move to an account executive role, you need kind of those core capabilities to have a conversation, you know, with a operations director. So again, yeah, I'd say, yeah, kind of after month 6 is when I really started to get it and started to see it much more than a role of just booking meetings. There's much more to the role.
Yeah, because I mean, you're what, 22 at this point, 23,
23,
maybe?
yeah.
And you're speaking to senior business executives who have been on 20, 30, 40-year careers, dealing with multi-million-pound businesses. That's not a conversation you're expecting to have necessarily.
And they can sniff people out that are new, right?
Right.
They know. They know. And again, that's part of the SDR role, is actually understanding how business works. And it probably sounds a little bit stupid, but actually having a business-led conversation, you know, with a prospect, and not only, you know, selling them what you do, but also understanding how their business operates. Actually, how do they make money as a business? What is the value that your, you know, solution is going to give to that business? So that's a, you know, key learning point as an SDR, is actually understanding how business works. And, you know, once you have that understanding, you can start to have those detailed conversations, and your opportunities become more qualified, and therefore more likely to actually move into pipeline. Okay,
excellent. So talk to me a little bit more about that kind of value piece, right? So you're having conversations with business leaders. Some of them are coming to you and saying, look, we're interested in your solution, how can it help me? Others you're reaching out to and trying to provoke that conversation. How do you do that? How do you focus on business value versus our product can do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, so I think, you know, like I said, there's two sides. There's an inbound and outbound side. On the inbound side, they have registered an interest, right? So the conversation is much more of a natural conversation, right? You know, there must be a reason why they're contacting you. It's not, no one wants to window shop software. Like, no one does that, right? There must be a reason why they're contacting you, and I'm sure that a lot of SDRs face the challenge of, you know, you ask them, okay, well, what prompted you to get in contact with us? Oh, well, we want X feature. Oh, great. Okay, well, that's a qualified meeting, which I can see account executive. But that's not the case. I think, you know, especially on those inbound calls, what you want to get to is, like, why? What happens if you don't have that feature? Right. Like, what impact does that have on your business? And then you can really start to see the value that you're going to drive to that prospect or that company. It's that deeper level of understanding. It's great they want X, but why? And a lot of the time you literally have to ask the question, why though? Like, what impact will that have on your business? And like I said, that's when, in my opinion, as an AE now, that's a qualified meeting, right? When I understand why they're speaking to us. You know, what's the driver?
So why is that, asking you why again, but why is that important to you as an AE? That you have those qualified meetings? Like, what's the significance of the SDR role for you?
Yeah, because I guess ultimately, as an account executive, you want to close business. You don't want to, you know, waste time on people that are, you know, just looking for the sake of looking, right? And also it allows, you know, you as an account executive to have a more, you know, in-depth conversation with that company, and actually start to get key stakeholders from that company. If you understand the value, then you know what people to include, and you also know, and you know, like a lot of software companies, everyone wants to give a personalised demo, everyone wants to show the value, but how can we do that if we don't really understand why they're speaking to us? And again, you know, you look at the wider sales cycle, and I reckon the amount of opportunities that close when you understand why and what the actual value is on that business, you know, it's a much higher percentage than the new functionality X, Y, and Z. So you're more likely to focus your time on them as an account executive.
Okay, excellent. So you're in the SDR role. Talk to me about kind of some of your highlights, some of your lowlights. What were the best and worst bits of that time?
I'll start with the worst bit. So the worst bit was, again, quite new into the role, and we had this event. We were trying to drive. We had this event we were trying to drive, and again, you know, I just didn't get it. Why am I being tasked with driving people to the event? Like, I'm not an events manager or anything like that. I want to book meetings. And anyway, we're given this task a few weeks in advance to drive people to the event. Anyway, the event comes along. It's in Manchester. Not naming specifics, but it was a disaster, and we didn't get the turnout we wanted. Our CEO at the time had gone up and given a keynote, and realistically, the turnout was just not great. And it was clear everyone could see that, right? So anyway, the next day we're in the office, and I get into the office, and you're already there, and you want a word with me. I'm like, okay, what have I done? Maybe I've said something wrong at the event, or, maybe I did something wrong. But essentially, I just hadn't put the time and effort into driving attendance to the event. I've been focusing on other areas and didn't realise how important the event was for the business, but also didn't realise how important the event was for me in building pipeline in the future and building meetings. So basically, you just got my report up and it was just like, look, you haven't, over the last 3 weeks, your activity levels on this specific event have been terrible, and now I've got the sales director telling me, why is Luke in my team? Why is he even here? So I think that's quite tough to kind of take and actually think, that spotlight, again, as an SDR, other people higher up in the business do focus on what you're doing. And again, I didn't realise that before. I thought, I'm just going to make my calls, I'll just get on my day and no one else will check. But it was clear from that point that, the sales director of EMEA is looking at my call stats and activity levels, then, I need to be on it. And I got called out, and it was quite a hard thing to take, to say, if I wanted to move in an account executive role and he was part of that hiring process, him to say, why is he here? That's difficult, right?
Yeah.
That's difficult to say.
Yeah, I remember the conversation then.
Yeah.
I think you're well aware that from my perspective, there was no risk of you being fired.
Yeah.
Right? It was definitely a conversation to try and highlight how things could be better rather than to try and make you feel terrible about yourself.
Yeah.
But I guess a bit of insight into how that impacted you and what changed as a result of that.
I think it drove me to be better, and I think because I knew by that point I did want to make the next step into sales. If the sales director is going to be on top of me in terms of looking at what I'm doing, then I need to prove to him in the long run that I am right to be at the business, and I'm also right to move into the account executive role. So yeah, I'd say it definitely, initially I was a bit set back, but I think it kind of, had that extra drive, once I had a bit of time to digest kind of that. It probably definitely made me, going forward, make sure that I would push events, and also, make sure that, my activity levels are high, and ultimately, that's what I did.
Excellent. It's something that I come across a lot, where people have this turning point in their career, where something happens, whether it's a mistake that they make or a conversation they have with somebody that really kind of drills it home as to how big the opportunity is for them in this type of role. And that was definitely my perspective of you, is that this experience, it showed you, if it can be that noticed when I drop the ball, how noticed will it be when I...
It's exactly that. Because as an SDR, you want to impress. The SDR role is really tough, but it can be really rewarding if you do the right things. And I think that, like you said, I think it was that turning point of actually, if I do the right things, if I stand out from the rest of my team, then I'm going to be noticed, right? So I guess on that point, making calls and sending out emails isn't enough to be noticed. You've got to do other things. And like I said, the way that I view my role after that is actually not just booking meetings for account executives, but to be an extended arm of their business. To support them in any way I can, whether that be shadowing qualifications calls with them, shadowing demos, doing extra research, attending sales strategy meetings with them, or even going on site. I want it to be seen from the sales director's point of view as that person that's going above and beyond, and not just sitting there making calls and going home every day.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's move on. What about highlights? What are some of kind of your proudest moments or best experiences in an SDR?
I would say probably my proudest moment as an SDR, I guess just being at the, so actually there's a couple. One was smashing out the highest number of calls in one day. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was near the 200 mark.
Very nice.
So, good to get a shout out for that. I think other things, you know, just to be seen amongst your peers as someone that's credible. You know, for me, like I said, as an SDR, you can come in and make calls, but actually the rest of the business know, you know, what you're contributing. And I feel like kind of towards the end of my time as an SDR, the rest of the business did know that. Yeah, just to have that credibility, I think, yeah, that was definitely a highlight as an SDR, and you know, to take the role to the next level, that was really important to me.
So interesting,
Yeah.
kind of hearing that from you, because what I predicted would be your highlights are different to the
Really?
things that you said. You know, maybe you're being modest, but as the record holder for the most amount of meetings booked in a month during the time that I was at Numerous Media,
true.
That January was quite something.
That was actually good. I think that was probably the same month as the call stat one.
Quite possibly. Quite possibly. What was it you achieved in that month?
Was it like 30 or something? Like 30 meetings. Yeah. It was around about that, like 30.
Like more than one meeting per working day.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And again, it's those sort of behaviours that get you recognised. So for me personally, it probably wasn't that I held the record for the meeting, but it was more about, you know,
what that did for your personal brand in the business.
Exactly, what people, you know, started to come to me and say. I think actually another highlight was a sales kickoff once.
Okay.
And for the sales kickoff, probably by this point, I've probably been in the role for about 8 months, right? And I would say, looking back, you know, probably quite, you know, shy, you know, not very kind of outspoken, you know, kind of just kept myself to myself, I would say. And actually at the sales kickoff, we were doing like pitches. So I don't remember, but we had at that time where we were whiteboarding.
Right, yeah.
We were put into different teams, different tables, and on my table I had the sales director next to me. And he said, they were like, right, we need 2 people from each team to go up and present. You can remember this now.
I do now.
To go and present the sales pitch. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to do it because I'm just an SDR. I'm not even an account executive. Like, why would I do it? There's other people on this table that could do it. That, you know, it's part of their daily role. They would nail it. There's no risk involved, right? So I'm sitting there quite quietly. You know, at this point, no one's really putting their hand forward, and the sales director next to me, who I had very little engagement with probably previously, said, you know, Luke, you're going to do it, right? And it's kind of on the spot. You kind of just kind of sink into your seat, and you can't say no. Yeah, you can't say no to it. I'm not going to do it. But yeah, so I did it, and you know, I think again, you know, having that exposure to the rest of the sales team, you know, I don't know how many people, 150 people maybe, something like that. Possibly more.
Because it was marketing and product.
And to actually get up there and deliver that pitch, the whiteboard, you know, to have that visibility. Again, the amount of people that came up to me afterwards and said, I didn't realise, like, you know, that you were a good presenter, or I didn't realise that, you know, you kind of got the value proposition. I feel like at that point, my personal brand within New Voice Media kind of went up a little bit. So that was a significant moment for me, again in the SDR role.
I seem to remember there was one comment you made during that presentation that really kind of nailed it home, that you were there. So I guess a bit about
it was like absolutely loved New Voice Media.
It was so New Voice Media, big partner of Salesforce, Salesforce.com. And what was it you said?
It's like, I absolutely love sales. It was like, I absolutely love Salesforce. But I'm pretty sure Jeremy, the sales director, got me to say that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's another one of his little things that you need to get in there. So
yeah, I just remember it being very bold. Not aggressive, but just a bit of a stamp of, I'm here. I'm here, and I'm not here to not be noticed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, excellent. So, you're nailing it as an SDR, you're breaking records.
Yeah.
You want to be an AE.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how that process happened, and then we'll
Yeah. So I think as an SDR, you always have a point, and probably a lot of SDRs have this, is that after 9 months or so, you just think you're ready, right? You're smashing the numbers, you're hitting the calls, stats, you're hitting the emails, and you get to a point where you're like, actually, what else can I do, right? Like, what else does this business want from me to prove that I'm ready for the account executive role? And actually, there's a few things there that I would say kind of was a key part of my learning. So 9 months in, you know, you start to kind of speak to the hiring manager, sales director, whatever, and you tell them your intent, right? Look, I want to be an SDR forever. I want to move up. Like, I think I'm ready. And you know, kind of a key learning point I had was the person I spoke to at the time was like, well, you know, can you give me a demo of the solution? Can you talk me through the value proposition while doing a demo? You know, do you understand actually how the product works? And it was kind of that point I was like, well, no, I don't. So you can see from his perspective, like, well, you're not ready to be an account executive, because all I focused on that time was booking meetings, booking calls, and hitting my SDR number, which is absolutely fundamental. You have to do that. But yeah, I would say, you know, one is that I needed, to really understand the solution I was selling, you know, and minimize risk for the hiring manager. The second is, you know, the point that I made earlier about getting to know business. You know, again, as an SDR, over time you'll start to have more informed business conversations. So that was another key point, is actually, you know, understanding how business operates before you move into the account executive role, because on your second day as an AE, you could be sat opposite a COO who knows like business like the back of his hand, right? And he's gonna smell you out. You don't know, you know, if you're 2 days into the role, he's gonna know. So you need to minimise the risk involved in that. And then thirdly, I would say, you know, after that 9-month period, I knew I wanted to be an account executive, but I also knew that I needed some sort of mentor internally to help me understand actually what is it that an account executive does on a day-to-day basis. So luckily enough, you know, I had a mentor that was the account executive that I was aligned to, and you know, like I said before, even if it was just shadowing demos or shadowing on-site meetings by my SDR manager, let me out. Just understanding how they conduct themselves, and it's going to sound stupid, but like just picking up like little phrases that they say, or just how they conduct themselves in front of prospects is really important. And you can't, you need to have an understanding of how it's done before you move into the role. So that's important to me. And then, so kind of like I said, at the 9-month point, I thought I was ready. I wasn't ready. And then about 6 to 8 months later, the opportunity came up to apply for an account management position. I just went for that, basically.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I guess you've kind of talked about this,
yeah.
and I appreciate you spoke recently at the Sales Confidence event about the things that you need to do to prepare to be an account executive and to make that transition. When the time came that you were successful in that process and you get given the job, what were kind of some of the key learnings or the key things that you felt you wish you'd known or you wish you'd done to prepare, and some of the things that you thought, you know what, that was crucial for me to have had?
Well, I think in the SDR role, you're quite siloed in your business. You know exactly what your role is, you get on with it, and you don't need too much support from other areas. I'd say probably a key learning of moving into an actual sales role is understanding how your business operates internally. So you can imagine as an account manager, you deal with different departments within the company, right? Whether that be legal for contractual issues, whether it be professional services for implementation questions and things like that. There's a lot of touch points within your business that you need to have, essentially. So I would say a key learning for me is that probably what I should have done is spent a little bit more time actually understanding kind of the key players in different areas of the business, and actually building a rapport with them to not only understand, you know, what they do on a day-to-day basis and how their division operates, but probably more importantly, what would they expect from me as a future AE or account manager, right? Just so I know how to, you know, interact with them, you know, build that rapport up, you know, get answers quickly, and just to have that support network, because, you know, like I said, as an SDR, that's not as important, but as soon as you make that step into, you know, a closing role, it's a team effort, right? You need other areas of business to help you actually close business, so, yeah.
Okay, excellent. So, talk to me a bit about kind of your journey since then. So, your account manager role, that was where you were looking after existing customers?
Yeah, so...
And what's happened
so I was looking after around about 60 existing customers in a closing role. I did that for about 7-8 months. Really, actually a good kind of stepping stone, I saw it. Because these customers are using the solution. You know, they knew the product, you know, the conversations I was having with them wasn't so much around, you know, selling the vision of the company. It was more around helping them, you know, get value from the platform, and also looking at areas where I think they could benefit from of maybe, you know, products or features that they're not using today that would actually give value to their operation. So I think my first like 2-3 months as an account manager was literally just going on site to a lot of customers and saying, look, what is your strategy? What are your objectives over the next 12 months? How does our solution tie into that? And really starting to build up that vision of what their business is doing, and just matching that to what we can give them.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a little bit of a different sales cycle to an account executive. So yeah, I did that for 7 months. Actually really enjoyed it. Had a good team around me, which again was crucial. Had that mentorship program that we spoke about earlier. And then the business always knew that my desire was to move into a new business account executive role. And actually at the time, again, there was an opportunity that came up for an account executive role. And I got put forward. I did a kind of a hybrid role for a few months of actually looking after existing customers, and then transitioning to new business. But yeah, now I've been doing that for kind of a year or so now, I guess. Yeah.
And within that time, New Media were acquired by Vonage.
Yeah. I guess I was quite lucky with joining New Media, because as we all discovered, I was a little bit unsure, and the first 3 to 4 months, I didn't enjoy the role particularly, but no, really fortunate that I did stay. As a company, like a lot of SaaS companies, we were VC backed. It was important to us that we had kind of that stability in the future. And as of last October, we got acquired by Vonage for $350 million, which is a really significant part of my career, is to say, look, I've been at a company, a SaaS company that were VC backed, and we got to that point of acquisition, which a lot of SaaS companies want to get to, right? Really good, and exciting times at Vonage ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess moving into a few kind of quick fire questions, or maybe not quick fire. We'll see how they go. Tell us a bit about kind of what Vonage, New Media do. Who do you sell to, and what is it that you sell?
Yeah, that's a good question.
like pitch everyone.
Yeah, so essentially we're an end-to-end unified communications platform. So we deal with businesses that want to address communication challenges that they're having, whether that be internal communication or external communication. So Vonage provide that end-to-end UC solution. So they provide things like video chat, internal chat, phones on desks, mobile applications, and really where New Media come into it is that intelligent integration into Salesforce, right? So you think about from a customer service perspective, if you call into your phone provider, you want to have a really good experience, and using New Media and Vonage, we can utilize data in Salesforce to make Salesforce not only a CRM tool but a communication platform. So your phone provider know who you are, why you're calling, and give you that VIP customer service, because I'm sure you spend quite a lot of money with them. And then from an outbound perspective, we enable people to have more conversations, right? There's so many tools out there that drive more dials, essentially, picking up more rings. But actually, where New Media and Vonage sits in is actually having intelligent conversations with people, looking at processes within Salesforce to say, well, who's the next best person you should call? Is it someone that has just completed a form on your website and registered some sort of interest? Or is it someone that you spoke to yesterday and you said you'd call them back now, right? How do we intelligently decide, who you should call next? So it is really that end-to-end communication platform, and we're uniquely placed with Vonage now, so it's exciting times.
Excellent. Yeah, very, very exciting times ahead.
Yeah.
So, where can people find out more about Vonage, and what's the best way for people to contact you?
So LinkedIn, I'd say LinkedIn's a really good tool.
So it's Luke
Butler on LinkedIn,
Okay.
You can obviously go on the Vonage website. You've also got the New Media website for the Salesforce integration. But yeah, LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. So final two questions. Three questions. We'll see. So first, what advice would you give to somebody that's considering a career in sales?
That is a good question. So I would say, I'd say for someone that wants a career in sales, I would say, if you're going into an SDR role, do not see it as a backstep, or do not see it as a non-important role in your career. Because really in that SDR role, the way that I view it, is your learning time to build yourself up to become an account executive and prove to others you're the right person for the role. So really, you know, the first, you know, year and a half, 2 years, it's really about, you know, putting the graft in. You know, it's not going to be glamorous to start with, but again, if you want to become an account executive, you really need to use that role not only to understand how to actually have business conversations, but also understand, you know, things like, you know, understanding the software, understanding actually what you're selling, understand the value proposition. So you use it as a learning platform, I would say.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Next question. How much, I mean, look, you're still reasonably early in your career.
Yeah.
But it feels like you've had quite a bit of success so far. So how much of that success do you feel is down to luck and being in the right place at the right time versus your kind of hard work and skill and natural talent?
Probably a bit of both. Probably. You think about the luck side, right? You know, I didn't even know about Luke and Vonage. I've been here for 3 years now. You know, literally a friend of a friend referred me into the business, so I would say that's pretty lucky. Actually, the other side of it is, you know, you do have to put a lot of effort in, a lot of time if you want to be successful, because when you do become an account executive, you're going to be responsible of your own destiny, right? If you're not closing business, if you're not bringing opportunities into the company, then, you know, the spotlight is going to be on you. So really, you know, you do have to put the hard work in, you know, to make sure you're at the top, you know, top of performance, basically. So I'd say it's probably a mixture.
Okay, excellent. And then final question. Who do you know that you think has had an interesting sales career that would be great for us to have on the podcast?
I would say Joe Wright.
Joe Wright?
Yeah.
All right.
Speak to
Excellent.
Joe Wright.
Well, Joe, you've been called out.
Yeah.
We'll come in for you.
Good.
All right. Thank you very much for your time,
All
Luke. It's an
right.
absolute
Thank
pleasure
you.
to have you on
Cheers.
today.
Thank you, sir.